Yeah, man, welcome to the Bite Size Tips YouTube channel. I'm going to show you how to manage conflict and save your relationship, man. No, to be honest, this PowerPoint was using my old job, but I kind of made some small tweaks to it. So, never mind the word recovery, substances, is still applicable to everyone in life. A lot of slides, but I'm going to focus more on the conflict resolution stuff. Let's get right into it, man. So we're going to look at what is conflict, different ways of handling conflict, what can happen if you don't handle conflict properly, and applying the conflict resolution properly in your relationships. We're going to learn why conflict is essential, not just for people in recovery, but for everyone in life. So it doesn't matter who you are, man. I'm telling you, no one is the same. Everyone has, for example, a unique fingerprint. So everyone has ways of dealing with things. So, in other words, conflict is bound to happen, it's inevitable. You're going to experience it. So, if you have the basic conflict resolution skills, you are ahead of the game, man. So, let's look at personality. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So, personality, characteristics, and trait, it comes down to someone's behavior, what makes them unique, what makes them stand out. You know, that person's always mean, or that person's always kind, or that person's always laid back. So, personality traits and those stuff, it tells a lot about you. Is what's consistent about you. In other words, what in you stand out. If I were to ask someone, describe you, what are they going to say about you? So that's personality and traits and characteristics. So if you want, you can just like research that and learn more about that. So types of personality. So let's keep this simple, man. So personality A, they like to have high standards, which is good. They achieve high, they're always on time, but they're not very flexible. Personality B people, like myself, we're laid back. We're not easily stressed, but sometimes we like to procrastinate. Personality C, they're very detailed, very analytical, and you know, that kind of thing, but it comes with disadvantages as you can see in this slide. So for example, I think B and C, they can be more passive aggressive. Like they may not tell you how you how they feel, so they might become reactive. Whereas personality A people, they are usually known to be more assertive. Personality D, so these are people who are always pessimistic, always have something negative to say, always putting you down, doom and gloom. That's what it comes down to. So with A, B, and C, everyone has a little bit of that, a little bit of this, but one of the personality types may stand up more. Maybe it's A, maybe it's B, or maybe it's 50-50. So it's good to have those people on your team, but if you more fall into the D category, then you got some work to do, right? So what is conflict? So conflict is basically a mental struggle. You're always having these opposing needs, always having these demands that are not met. In other words, it just comes down to a disagreement, right? That's what it comes down to. Also, it means to come into collision, and as I said before, disagreement, dealing with issues like not just recovery but in life. A lot of things that we argue about is finances, family problems, employment, and or quirks, bad habits. So we don't need to get into this, but managing in this context is maintaining some sort of order, stability in our relationships. And yes, if you want to know where conflict comes from, it comes from the Latin word conflictus, always striking together. So To put it simple, conflict is our inability. Well, I want to, I'll be honest with you. I would say it's more of our difficulty handling indifferences in various social relationships or work relationships, right? So inability, I think that's too strong, meaning that we can't, but I would say it's more of a challenge, which is usually possible to overcome. So, why manage conflict? It's obvious. We want peace and quiet, right? We want to be able to enjoy our relationships and we want less stress overall, right? So, that's pretty obvious. So, life happens, such as relationship difficulties. We face sudden changes, disagreements at work. Hopefully, this doesn't come down to your situation, being fired, you know, problems in the home. And as I said before, I think finances. So, if we're not prepared to handle conflict, our life can be a lot more stressful. And when we are in stressful situations, that can lead to very, very bad places. It's pretty obvious. So I'll keep this one simple. We all have a need to be understood, nurtured, supported, and respected. If we don't experience those things from other people, that can result in conflict. So how do we achieve that? How do we, for example, get someone's respect? We're going to look more into that shortly. So I want to keep this part simple. Based on your personality, what we looked at earlier. So if you're an A person, B person, and C, and even D, you will likely have a particular way of dealing with the disagreement or conflict. So, for example, let's look at this one. I'm just going to try to skip through some of this stuff. Some of us, we like to avoid the conflict. Like we like to walk away, right? Sometimes this is good. Sometimes we do this because, man, I don't want to hurt the other person. But if we feel that this is appropriate, like for example, if it's not appropriate in your situation in the moment to resolve the conflict, it's good to take a step back, right? But if we have that idea of not wanting to offend people, sometimes that can be a bad thing. And remember, it's your goal to not offend people, it's your goal to help the situation, right? So, as I was alluding to earlier, if you know the situation is not ideal, for example, if the person wants to fight you physically, obviously it's good to walk away from it. But in certain situations, you got to face it, right? You got to revisit it if it's appropriately. Because if you're always defaulting to walking away, then the root of the problem doesn't get solved. So competitive stance, we'll keep this one simple, is basically people always being forceful, my way or the highway. And, you know, people who like to use this stance are often argumentative. They like to argue with you, they like to force their opinions on you. So in emergency situations where someone has to take lead in a life or death situation, this style is appropriate, but in most situations, people can feel offended, right? If you have someone always shouting at you, always forcing their ideas on you. So this one is called collaborative style. So basically, you work together, such as in board meetings, if your idea is not panning out in a business for whatever reason at your workplace, everyone will have an input. Everyone will be somewhat supportive of you, like in a group setting. So, in other words, they're collaborating with you. However, oftentimes, like this style is useful when you need to bring together a variety of viewpoints to get the best solution, right? But that can come with disadvantages. So I'll just quickly highlight this. It can lead to spending excessive time on trivial matters, diffusion of responsibility being taken advantage of, and being bombarded with heavy workload. So here's another thing. If if this style is misused, it can often lead to a quick fix solution and lack of commitment by other team members and loss of innovation. So in other words, you don't really get time because it's so many of you putting your ideas on the table. You don't always have the time to explore each idea, and that in itself can lead to conflict. Accommodation style. This is kind of like the avoidance style a little bit. So basically, you're very flexible. You're like, okay, you win. Okay, I don't want to tell this person how I feel. I want to keep the peace. Sometimes this is good, but sometimes this is not good. So this requires you to be humble, to be able to sacrifice and to be selfless and to comply with the other person's idea without complaining. So that's good, but that can also be bad. So, for example, if you overuse this style, you will not get a chance to tell people how you truly feel. Then it could lead to passive aggressive behavior, and you might develop a grudge. People might know you as, yeah, that person is very flexible, to that person is the person that's holding a grudge against me. So there's a time and a place for this style, so be very, very careful, right? So other disadvantages is people will take advantage of you, maybe not on purpose, but they're just going to like see that you're always a person that's very, I don't know, you're like a yes person, not having any backbone. So you can have a look at this and see for yourself. Oh, here's another important one. And I think I mentioned this before, not having your concerns heard. So if you don't have your concerns heard, people won't know your needs. All right. So this one is self-explanatory. I'm sure you hear about this all the time. So compromising, you're basically maybe meeting a person halfway. So for example, if the budget in your family for groceries, food is expensive nowadays, is $300, but you and your spouse, you want this, you want that, or you guys, I don't know, you guys need certain stuff and it's going over budget a little bit, maybe you can compromise where, okay, let's go over the budget by $50, or let's go under by $100 and get that other stuff that we need next paycheck. So you win some, you lose some, but being able to like meet the person halfway. So another common example is someone owes you money and you know for a fact that they're having financial trouble, and it's to the point where, look, I see that you're trying to pay me, just pay me 80%. And you know that they can pay 80%. And at the end of the day, yes, you lose 20%, but the person met you more than halfway. So being able to accommodate people, like being able to accommodate people where they are at. In other words, if you can't get all what you need or all what you want, you can get most of it. So don't always use this style, in my opinion. In other words, we're still accountable to our actions. If we make decisions that result in conflict or result in, I don't know, consequences, like example again, if we borrow money from friends and we can't pay back, but hey, he's my friend, I want him to like maybe allow me to pay back 90%. Don't always do that. Or yeah, so just be mindful of that. So use each style appropriately, accommodate when you need to accommodate, and the competitive style when you have to be forceful, like in emergency situation, yes. Compromising, okay. It's important to be able to compromise, but do it skillfully when it's appropriate. Avoidance, for example, don't always walk away from conflict, but in certain situations, you just have to take a step back. So it's up to you to discern the situation and use a style that's appropriate. So let's get into why conflict happens and let's talk a little bit about emotion. So I won't read this word for word. So what this is saying is if you are in a conflict, you are likely angry, you are likely defensive, you are likely in a place where, you know, you're going to make a decision that you might regret. So when conflict is happening, be mindful of your emotions, right? Because if you possess these emotions that you see on the slide, like distrust, defensiveness, scorn, resentment, fear, and rejection, take a chill pill before you attempt to resolve the conflict because your inability to navigate through the conflict properly is low. So if you look at my other video on low stress, on how to manage stress, take that deep breath and that will put you in a better position to manage conflict. So emotional arousal actually makes us different people than we are in moments of greater calmness. I think that's by John Bolton. So when you're emotional and you make a decision, you may regret it. You're like, no, that's not me. So very, very important. So as I was saying before, your judgment is clouded. So let's get right into bite-sized solutions, guys. So the first step in managing a conflict is respect. Even if you know the other person is wrong, just listen to them, right? Just listen keenly and eye contact. Use appropriate voice tones. Our body language speaks most of what we say. A lot of people say it's about 80%. So be mindful of that and be mindful of the words that you use. If you're able to listen until you know how the other person feel, like get their perspective, that's going to set you up for success. Doesn't mean he's right in this moment or you're right, but it's going to help you lower stress levels, going to help you improve the relationship. Put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? It could be a whole misunderstanding that went wrong. So I'm going to read this quote here. We do understand an opposing idea until we have exposed ourselves to it, that we feel the pull of its persuasion. So just being able to emphasize, sympathize, listen to the point where, you know, you put yourself in another person's situation, you're going to feel what they feel. And hopefully this will help you guys to be on the right track to resolve the problem. So listening comes down to this: paying attention without interjecting. It's very hard. Show that you're listening by asking questions. Hey, what you're saying is if I leave the toilet seat up, it frustrates you when you have to sit on a cold toilet bowl. All right, I know that's too much information right there. So being able to reflect and paraphrase what the other person is saying, obviously don't do it in a robotic way. Just do it like naturally. Yo, what you're saying is when I go over budget, it puts a lot of stress on you. Or what you're saying is, whenever I leave the house or whenever I leave the office and don't say anything to anyone, it causes frustration. And when someone's giving their opinion or stating their facts, try your best not to judge. I know it's hard, guys. It does take practice. Try your best to like actually listen to what they're saying, and it is going to go a long ways for you. And respond appropriately, and that means be mindful of your voice tone. It's okay to be angry. It's natural. It's expected. But if you can like eliminate the sarcasm, eliminates like the high voice tone, that will go a long way. So here's another important point. When you share your feelings, try your best. This is very hard not to lose focus. In other words, when you're talking about a particular issue, try your utmost best not to introduce new issues into this current one. You're just digging yourself a hole there, and you guys are not going to resolve the conflict. Trust me. Ask me how I know. I know in these times we want to prove that we're right, but that should not be the priority. So, bottom line is try your best. I know this is hard. State your points pleasantly as much as possible. Keep your point of views like brief. And here's a very important one. Try to refrain from using certain words like but, oh my god, you're an idiot. Especially the word but or however. Because the moment you say that, you're pretty much contradicting what you're saying. So you state your points. Yeah, you know, this and that. I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. But yeah, it does take practice to be mindful of that. But if you can avoid using some of these words, you're setting yourself up for success. Say what you mean what you say. This is wrong, guys. So no, sorry. Say what you mean and mean what you mean. Okay, okay. I get what this is saying. I haven't done these slides in a long time, so you have to bear with me. If you say something, you gotta do it with intention, right? Don't beat around the bush like how I'm doing in some of my stuff right now. Just get to the point. Sometimes when you're assertive with people, they might take it the wrong way. It's good to get the truth out, right? Because that's the best thing for them. So if you manage to get this far, try to agree peacefully on a solution together. Even if you don't get this far, I can promise you this. After working in the addictions and mental health industry for 10 years with a couple thousand men from all over Canada, I can guarantee you this. And also working with a very diverse co-workers from all walks of life. If you can take anything from this PowerPoint, from this presentation, if you can listen and be able to like reflect what the other person is saying, I promise you, it doesn't mean you're going to get your way. It doesn't mean things will resolve overnight. You are well on your way to success. You will have less stress. You will have a lot of respect from the other person because when someone is yapping away, when someone is emotionally aroused, they can only be angry for so long. If they see that you're listening, there's a high probability they're going to want to work with you. Even if they don't want to work with you, you're saving yourself from a lot of unnecessary stress. So if you can take away something from this, get in the habit of listening, understanding how people feel, and be solution driven. And when you're sharing about how you feel, be able to do it in a respectful way. So I want to, yeah, just go over this one more time. So respect, I'm being respecting others. It doesn't mean that you're agreeing with them. It doesn't mean that you're saying yes to everything, right? And as I said before, if you experience how the other person feels, that's going to set you up for success, right? And stating how you feel, I feel offended, I feel disappointed or sad when you said that about my wife, about my, I don't know, about my job performance. And the other person might say, hey, I didn't mean it like that, but thank you for letting me know. No, this is easier said than done. It does take a lot of practice. And the whole bottom line is when you're working on conflict with others, you're trying to keep yourself safe emotionally and physically. Because remember, when things get heated, it can lead to bad things, right? And you want it to, like, make it your priority to save the relationship. Because if it's your coworker, you don't have to be bosom buddies with them, but you have to work with them. And conflict is an opportunity to grow together. It's an opportunity to learn about yourself, right? And you're going to learn about your strengths and you're going to learn about your weaknesses. And with the right attitude, you will get better. So, thank you for watching, guys. I know this is a bit long. It's supposed to be a bite-sized thing. I will do another video soon on active listening to be a lot more concise. And hopefully, you will gain something from this. Every time when I taught this at the treatment center, it's always a humble reminder for me because I'm always tested after this PowerPoint. But at the same time, I've seen it work for me in different relationships. I've seen it work for others who I know as well. Remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe if you found this very helpful. Anyways, man, one love.